Hi everybody, going to do a series of videos this week on what we call agency. Agency, just quickly defined as what you pay a real estate agent or a broker as we're called in North Carolina. Agency is what you're paying them to do or their level of representation. There are a couple of different types of agency in North Carolina. There's seller agency, buyer agency, dual agency, and designated dual agency. Now, because so many of these concepts are kind of in-depth and detailed, I'm going to break this out over a few different videos. So in this one, I'm just going to talk about buyer agency and seller agency. These are kind of simple terms. Bless you, Sandy. Dog is sneezing in the background. Wonderful. Buyer agency, as you might be able to guess, is when you hire an agent or a broker as a buyer and they take you around looking at houses. It's their job to find you a home. It's their job to obtain you a home. Your agent will work in your best interest as a buyer. Your agent will try to find you the best home for the best price. And if you remember one of my prior videos on what an agent owes you, they owe you that old car, that obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable care. That's buyer agency. Your agent is interested only in finding you a property or a home to buy, putting all other needs aside. It is their sole goal to find you as a buyer a property at the best price. Okay. And then contrast that against seller agency. So it's not at all terribly different. Again, the seller's agent that you hire, a seller or listing agent, and they will owe you old car again. And their goal is to get the highest and best price for the property you're selling. They owe you undivided loyalty. They owe you that old car, and their goal is to get you the most money for your house. And as you can imagine, in a real estate transaction, the buyer's agent and the seller agent kind of have opposite goals, right? The buyer's agent wants to get the best and lowest price for the property. The seller's agent wants to get the highest and best price for the property. So that's buyer and seller agency. That's the first type. Later on this week, I'm going to drop another one about dual agency. So subscribe if you're interested at all and follow along. We'll see how we do. Okay, so we've got buyer and seller agency out of the way. I'm going to talk now about dual agency. Buckle up. This one's kind of involved, okay, as dual agency means two things. Dual agency could mean that one agent is working as both the buyer's agent and the seller's agent of the same property. It could mean that I have a listing for sale, a house that I'm trying to sell as a seller's agent, and I then also find a buyer for that property and represent the buyer in that transaction as well. Now, this may sound fishy to you, and it kind of is. It could be a little off-putting because as an agent, to whom do I owe my undivided loyalty? Well, both, right? And if I owe both the buyer and the seller undivided loyalty, then it doesn't exist. It's divided. My loyalty is now divided. So for that reason, a lot of people will shy away from just even the concept of dual agency. But dual agency has another definition, a completely different definition, and this goes to your representation contract and what that means. If you sign a contract for representation with me or with any broker in North Carolina, what you're really signing an agreement with is the brokerage, okay? And in this type of dual agency, I can act as your buyer's agent, and another broker in my firm could be selling a house that you want, and they're the seller's agent, but we both work for the same brokerage, okay? this is the type of dual agency you want, especially if your broker, your wonderful buyer's agent who you love, works for a large firm with a lot of listings that you may be interested in browsing. So that's another type of dual agency where one brokerage has a broker as a seller's agent and a broker as a buyer's agent. That's technically a type of dual agency. So there are two types of dual agency. It's one term, it means two things, either one broker representing the buyer and the seller, or one brokerage, one company with a broker selling one house and a buyer looking to buy that same house under the same brokerage umbrella. And that's good dual agency because, again, you get to shop around with everything, with all of the listings that are around there looking for your home, your property, and you don't have to worry about any conflicts or any division of loyalty because there are two separate brokers, even though we're in the same brokerage. So reach out with any questions about dual agency. It's something I generally recommend, and subscribe if you like what I'm saying. Thanks. The last type of agency I'm going to discuss is called designated dual agency. Designated dual agency is a situation that arises, and it can arise if a conflict of interest is identified during the course of negotiations or a real estate transaction. For example, I'm a buyer's agent broker working with a buyer. They find a house that they're interested in. It's listed by my firm under dual agency. We're looking at this house, and the house they find happens to belong to my cousin. Okay, now that could present a conflict of interest in me representing that buyer in this transaction. So what my firm would do is they would then go and designate a different buyer's agent for my client. It's the most simple explanation and example I can think of. Designated dual agency, it's where the firm specifically designates an agent or a broker for one or both parties in the transaction, really. So that's designated dual agency in a nutshell. There is a benefit in that there will be undivided loyalty and representation with a designated dual agent, but it could mean that the person that you signed on with, that you really want to represent you, no longer gets the opportunity to do so because of an actual or perceived conflict with the transaction. Benefits and disadvantages to designated dual agency versus regular dual agency. So that's it. There's other types. There's sub-agency, there's seller sub-agency, there's buyer sub-agency. There are all different types of agency that can be practiced in North Carolina, but buyer agency, seller agency, dual agency, and designated dual are the types that you're going to see most. And there is a reason I'm talking about this. There is a disclosure that I do want to make a video about. I'll probably make a video about it next week. It's sort of in depth. It's a form. Have you ever had to sign for receipt of something, like when you get a FedEx package delivered and you sign saying you received it? Well, there's a disclosure form that talks about types of agency, that if you begin talking with a real estate professional, they should go over this and have you sign for receipt of it, just, so that we all know that we've had these conversations. But anyway, I digress. We'll talk about that next week. I hope you enjoyed my short videos on agency types. Subscribe if you like what I'm talking about. Thanks.